Steve, you're muted.
Did you guys ever lose me through all that? Did you guys were on the whole time? My computer got weird and disappeared. Okay.
Yeah, you froze for a minute there.
Okay. So, and whoever Eric was, he's gone. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 of you, and Tina coming on. And we need to remember, oh, this is recording. So we're recording now. I'm just going to leave it recording because I'll forget if I turn it off. Stephanie, Justin's on. Who is Eric?
How are you?
Hey, Justin. Donald's on. Eric's on.
I'm Eric Anderson, Times Union.
Oh, hi, Eric. How are you? Okay.
Doing well, and you?
I'm good. I just want to know who everybody was.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks.
And Susan. So just, before we start, which is in 2 minutes. So I'm going to need Rich Nolan to approve the January 17th minutes because I got Albert, Sue. I don't have Jim Gully yet. Hi, Stephanie. Now that your picture's there.
Hello.
Rich. All right. So I got Rich, Albert, Sue, Tina, but not Jim yet. Tina, is that you on the phone there?
Can't see it.
Oops. I'm sorry. Tina, say something again.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. I can't see you. Is that the way it happens?
If you're on your phone, yes.
Because I'm on the phone?
Yep.
Okay. All right, then.
That's all right. You know what we look like.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Okay. So okay, so it's 10 o'clock. I have a quorum, but I don't have Jim Gully, who I'd like to get. Well, we can start without him. How about I have Rich, Sue, Tina, Anasha, and Stephanie, so we can approve the March 20th minutes. And Tina, what was your number? Were you 331-3945?
That's right.
Okay. So. And okay.
Looks like Jim just joined as well.
Good.
I did. Good morning, everybody.
Hey, Jim.
Good morning.
All right. Justin, I guess I'll let you call the meeting to order. It's 10
All
o'clock.
right. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for taking the time today to attend this meeting. I just want to officially, for those of you that don't know me, Justin Nadeau, I joined the team a couple months ago. Haven't really been able to be involved due to the whole pandemic and the PPP program as I work for a lending institution. But I just wanted to say, hello to everybody, and I'm excited and excited to join the team and looking forward to help wherever I can. So without further ado, let's move to the first agenda. Unfortunately, I was not involved in those meetings, but the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes on the January 17th, 2020 meeting. There was no quorum at that point, so looking to motion and approval of those minutes.
I had a look. I'll make the motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
Who made the motion?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Could we go back and who made the motion and who made the second?
Rich Nolan made the motion.
And Sue Farrell, second.
Okay, and so the vote was probably I was Nolan, Elbert, Farrell, Gully, and Erzon, and everybody else abstained because they weren't at the meeting. Is that okay?
Right, it's okay.
Okay.
Great. Moving on to the second part of that. First item is the approval of the minutes on March 20th.
And the members present on that, so we know, were Rich, Sue, Tina, Anasha, and Stephanie. So they're the ones that should be making the motion and voting.
I will make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Sustained. All right.
And who made the second on that one?
I did, Stephanie.
Stephanie, okay.
All right. I guess I'll go a little slower since we're writing everything down.
Well, we're recording, but it doesn't help if, it'd be good to get that. Okay, we're good though.
Great. All right. Moving on to item number 2, I'd like to turn it over to Steve, who is going to lead on these next 2 projects, 701 River Street and Troy Walk. Steve?
Okay, 701, thanks, Justin. So 701 River Street is a pilot we've already approved in the past. It is the Marshall Ray Building, which, as you all know, I'm sure had the fire last year, and so work delayed. So basically, they need to come back to us for additional sales tax because now they've got another $800,000 worth of sales tax that they need to get an exemption for, and we limit them on what we can do, use it for, or how much they can use in the first place. So again, this is still an 80-unit project with 15,000 square feet of commercial space. As well, they are having delay pays from their insurance company. So they've requested that we put some funding towards their project. The request is $250,000. This is an initial resolution, so we'll discuss the details again next month. But what I'm proposing to do is, since we have the available funding, is to use funding that we have towards project costs and then amend the lease, which we have with them, to up the purchase price on that by the like amount, and have that close when they get their construction financing, and or have it be repaid at that point. Justin's here if he needs to describe anything as well, or if, I don't know if I've got anybody on here from Redburn Associates.
Is this the appropriate forum to ask questions on this, or would you rather wait till?
You can ask. I may not have the answers.
Okay. I was just reviewing it earlier this morning, and specific to the projected job offerings, it mentions that the bulk of the job offerings will be coming from a restaurant, and I was curious if that was somehow already committed, like a restaurant was going to come in there, just with, you know, the current lay of the land right now. Restaurants are currently struggling. By the time this property becomes available, are we going to be able to ensure that a restaurant's going to want to go in there? Yeah, so that's where I'm a little bit hesitant here. Just to,
so they did at the, yeah, and the answer, and they did at the time have someone they were working with on it. So I'm sure they're still moving down that road to get the brew pub in there. But so that's, the numbers are based on that.
Okay.
Do you have a couple? Go ahead.
It just might be worthwhile, like, to reach out to them and see how that relationship's going, if that's still on the table, if there's challenges there, just so we have insight into that.
Okay, I can get answers for that and have them present more
Steve,
at the hearing in a month.
Tom Ross is on the call now.
Is he?
Yep.
Good. Let me see if Tom, are you?
Sorry, guys. Yeah, I was having difficulty on my computer. I had to use my phone.
No worries. I'm not sure if you heard my question, so I'll repeat it. I was looking at the estimated job offerings with the property, 701 River Street, and it looks like you're estimating about 14 positions related to a restaurant business going in there. And I was curious if there was a business deal in place or a contract that's guarantees a restaurant is going to go into there, just with the current climate. Understanding the desirability of opening a restaurant right now probably isn't super high.
No, there's not. Unfortunately, there's nothing in the works. We had some discussions before the fire, and we had some interest. I don't think, just being candid, until this building is done, like 100%, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people on the commercial side that are going to come take a look. Once it's done, I think it's going to look great. But I think we're going to have to get the building done, and then at that time frame, hopefully we're kind of also out of this. So I don't have anything right now, but that is, we do have kind of two spaces where I think we can either get a smaller or a medium size, hopefully restaurant user or some sort of food service user.
And to clarify, when you say you're out of it, what does that mean?
I think what I was meaning was until we're done with construction, essentially because of the fire, and then I think the delays on the project, I think we're going to need it needs to be like 100% done. And then when I say we're out of it, I meant out of COVID. So
I see. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Thanks.
Okay, Justin, do you need to add anything to this, Justin Miller?
No, I think you described it well. They suffered a pretty significant casualty to the building, and they're working through not just insurance carriers, but lenders and tax credit investors that all have a very vested interest in the success of the project. So it's a very complicated situation that they're working through, and are committed to rebuilding as fast as they can once all of those stakeholders kind of are singing the same tune. The request that has been placed before the IDA is for additional sales tax benefits, as Steve outlined. They were provided with about $6 million of purchases and a corresponding amount of, roughly $430,000 in sales tax benefits. They got through about half of that. I mean, they're literally equipping kitchens when this terrible thing happened. So they have to not only replace all of the things that were purchased, but also go through heavy reconstruction and then repurchasing. So their request is for another $800,000 in exemptions, which in turn requires us to consider that with a public hearing that we hope to hold as part of the July cycle. So that's kind of why we're here. It's just a starting resolution that we're accustomed to start a typical project. This just happens to involve an existing one. And they're also looking for some cash flow assistance to help get the reconstruction completed. The IDA has the power to spend money on projects. In this case, we have a little flexibility to help them get through the construction phase and recoup those expenditures through, some of you may remember, they own the building outright, but the IDA owns the parking lot behind it that's on President Street leading towards the river. As part of this process, we would look to change the terms of that option agreement. In other words, instead of, I think they have a balance of about $90,000 to take down that land for the parking lot. We would simply recoup our expenditure once that option is exercised by them. So it's a good way for the IDA, I think, to help get them through the casualty quickly and make the project successful. That's my 2 cents.
All right, thanks. So are there any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, can you give a little history of this? Like, when was I don't really know anything about it, so.
Oh, sure. I can do well, probably 30 seconds to a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
You folks, I mean, you're all Troy people, so you remember the Marshall Ray building, well-known building up on River Street that was essentially abandoned and left, rotting. It's the best way to describe it for decades. The city ended up owning it for taxes. And it started with a disposition to Yuri Kaufman, if you remember Yuri Kaufman running around and owned a bunch of stuff in the Capital District and had some success with some projects. This one didn't really get off the ground. Through a series of transfers, the 701 River folks, as we know them now, Redburn Development Company, partnered with another gentleman that took out Yuri's title, I think about 3 to 4 years ago, if I remember correctly. So a good development team was put together to acquire the building. Along the same time, some of you may recall, having been IDA board members at the time, the IDA went through the process of acquiring the land behind the building that abuts the river. So the IDA has a history of working on this project, 7-8 years, to try to make the 701 River project, as it looks now, assembled in a really nice project that is adjacent to the Ingalls Avenue boat launch. Long story short, the existing development team went into title about a year, and I think it was the end of 2017 going into 2018. They stabilized the land and the building. The IDA owned the lot out back, and we set up this collective project where the IDA was selling them the land for the parking lot next to the building, and they were going to redevelop the 80 apartments and commercial space. The transaction that the IDA approved closed in December of 2018, and they started construction immediately. And I think it's August or September of 2019 is when they were mid-construction and this terrible fire happened.
It was July.
Okay, yeah. So we're about a year into this thing, and with all the lenders and tax credit investors and title companies and construction companies and insurance companies, Tom's life has been really fun.
I mean, Troy Fire did a great job, but I mean, we were 70-80% complete. All the sheetrock was up in the building, and it all had to come out. So like everything, so we were like cabinets were in place. So it was I mean, it's been a little bit of a nightmare, to be honest. So.
Is there a problem with the insurance companies paying out, or?
It's a substantial claim, and we've received millions of dollars, but we're still expecting to receive more. We've gotten to a point finally where we're really, really close to finishing the project, and hopefully we'll get some additional proceeds. So there's a little bit of help that the IDA can help on the site work side that, that the lender is kind of, making sure the building gets done only. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And we've gotten a new contractor in there as well. The fire report is public. You can read it for yourself if you want. But we have a new contractor, and we have a lot of the old subs have come back. And we're getting started on the construction piece, and we're trying to put together the last site work piece, which is kind of what Justin was talking about before.
May I say something? I think the cash flow makes total sense. The sales tax on the additional purchases makes sense. But to Richard's point, shouldn't those numbers be adjusted as you start to go forward to see what realistically would be the number? Not that it would impact any decisions, but just for the record, so that as the years go on, it's not like, well, you said you were going to put in 75 employees and now you have 20.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good point, especially in light of COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially, we do need to monitor that every year, so it's important to get accurate numbers. So we can certainly talk with Tom and revisit that over the next week.
That being said, I think the numbers that are in there right now, I think, are like 17 total. Is that correct? Which includes 15 in the commercial/restaurant space, which it seems like it would be good to try to hold them to that over time. Obviously, if COVID impacts that initially, that's understandable, but that is a target that makes sense. The point of this is to help create jobs in our communities. So that's a number that it would be helpful for us to be able to hold them to as the economy gets up and going again.
Yeah, I don't disagree, Anasha. I think if anything, this should question the business type, and if the construction is going on in a way that's like painting us into a corner where it has to be a restaurant, maybe that we should open our minds about that.
Right now, we're doing it as a vanilla shell. There's kind of 3 discrete spaces. One of which we're going to move probably our property management company to, and then there's one space that's about 2,000 or 2,500 square feet, and then there's another space that's about 5,000 or 6,000 square feet. And before all the COVID and everything, we were pretty excited about potentially getting a restaurant. Maybe event space was kind of some of the stuff we were talking about. So I just think, though, we're going to have the dual headwinds of the fire, and making sure no one's going to, the building needs to be 100% done. And then I think the second part is like what everyone else is saying with COVID.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions regarding?
I had one more question on the loan. Is it technically a loan, the 250,000, or
No,
is it?
it's not.
How is that structured?
It's not a
just
loan. It would be paying for project expenses. We can't make loans. Although
Gotcha.
some of that's changed now recently, like as of this week, but we're still digesting that with some changes due to COVID. But so basically we would be paying project related, assisting with project expenses, and then
Okay.
we'd be amending the lease, the purchase option, basically.
So, I mean, I think we all assume good faith, and I think it obviously reasonably in this case. But I just wanted to check in terms of protections if they decide the parking lot isn't worth $340,000 or something like that at some point in the future. We protected in any way on that front?
Well, I would say that the project financing is tied to the parking. Is it not, Tom?
I think what you and I spoke about before was making sure that, the bike path gets built and some of these other things because it's also kind of a beautification of the area. So, and then I guess, I'd defer to Justin, but you do have some teeth on the option for the buying the land, right? Because we're still just leasing it technically. So I think that, I guess if I was in your shoes, I would tie all those pieces together somehow.
And we will do that, Anasha. So
Great.
Yeah,
Justin,
currently
do
the ground lease for the parking lot contains
you're breaking up.
Yeah, I didn't hear any of that.
Lost them.
calling in again.
Okay.
Is the parking lot needed for the tenants, for the residential tenants?
Yeah, we have about 77 apartments
believe
plus
so. Can you hear
15,000
me
of
better now?
commercial. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Is there any other questions on this
I have
project?
a question. Is there, on that lease program with the parking lot, is there a specific buy date where you would have to make the decision to purchase that lot by a certain time? Or is that just an ongoing lease until you make a decision to?
Am I
pay
back
for it?
online?
You're back online. Yep. So I think we got the question. The question, Justin, is the lease, and Jim. Yeah, there is I think it's a 5-year option with the purchase at the end of the 5 years. I don't know the specific date, but it's not something that would go on in perpetuity. But I would like to move up that purchase to be tied to the permanent financing with this.
And is ownership of that, so ownership of the parking lot would be a requirement of, I assume, the building or the occupancy permit through the planning board? Are those parking spots required by the project or
parking
not really?
spots were shown as part of the project in the planning commission review. So,
We have a lease. So for Anasha, we have a lease to have access to the parking. So the only difference is that we would then buy out the lease and own the land.
Gotcha.
Sorry about that.
There's also, just so you guys know, there's some it was cleaned up by National Grid. It was part of some DEC program. So there's some lingering issues too that we're also kind of resolving with DEC, which is another reason we structured it like that as well.
Yeah, reasonable. So Justin, I guess, if you're back on, just, it doesn't need to be now, but certainly I want some finality on how we make sure they can't walk away and just either continue to lease it or find other parking, if this is the collateral.
For sure. Yeah, I apologize for my Wi-Fi hiccup. That they have a mandatory option to purchase, and absent that, we would own the parking lot free and clear. Their lenders and tax credit investors are going to be keenly interested in not having that occur. So it would, in essence, disrupt their financing. So they're going to be squarely required to pay us the amended lease amounts to recoup our investment.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Any other questions right now?
No.
So is there a motion to approve the additional, I believe it's $250,000 in capital expenditures?
This is a call for, this is initial project resolution, calling for the public hearing. So I guess just to approve the initial public project resolution.
Yeah, we're just accepting their application and then scheduling a hearing to be conducted next month. The formal approval by the IDA will occur next month after the hearing. So we'll have all the exact details, including the exact amounts of sales tax and expenditure, in front of the IDA board and disclosed at the hearing before it's approved. So
Gotcha.
as Kevin O'Brien used to say, this is just our first bite at the apple. So.
All right, so is there a motion to approve the application for 701 River Street?
And please
I'll make the motion.
Sue, please state, I got you, Sue, but when, whoever seconds it, please state their name.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, Stephanie.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, guys.
Moving on to the next item. Steve, this is Troy Riverwalk.
Okay, and again, this is another initial project resolution for another project that was approved previously. This is a 22,000 square foot building. Initially, there were 14 apartments, and I think they're going to 18 apartments, and they're having problems with their financing. I have Glenn Lund on here who can discuss the issue. This just goes to point to the importance of pilots. This project is really not going to happen without this. And so Glenn Lund is with CPC. Glenn, are you there? Ask to unmute.
Uh-oh.
Last comments were, but
okay,
the permanent financing for this project. for a permanent a construction loan of about a permanent loan. There are some historic tax credits related to this project. So when it was completed and ready to convert, we were looking at roughly about a $3.2 million permanent loan and some grants and credits coming in to repay the construction loan. However, during the process of our underwriting, well, let me back up a moment and I'll try to make this brief. Community Preservation Corporation, we're not a bank, we're a community development financial institution. Therefore, we don't collect deposits, and we don't have essentially a lot of our own funds to be able to lend out. We have investors that provide funding, particularly on the permanent loan side. And a loan such as this, a redevelopment loan, is typically funded through the New York State Common Retirement Fund. We act as a seller servicer for the Common Retirement Fund. Ultimately, that's where the funds come from. Given that this loan would be sold to the Common Retirement Fund, the comptroller uses this as part of their investment for state retirees. As additional insurance for this loan when it's purchased, it is required to be guaranteed by Sonny Mae. And therefore, in addition to CPC, our underwriting and approval process, it does need to go through an approval process through Sonny Mae. And part of that process, Sonny Mae does, when there is, particularly when there's pilots on a loan, they do require that a projection for the length of the loan be completed and to meet over the life of the loan. And unfortunately, with the original pilot, that did not occur, given it was a shorter length and the step-ups in the pilot were fairly sizable at times. It did drop below their requirement, therefore they would not be to around 2.8 million. So unfortunately, that did put the project in jeopardy because there would not have been enough funding and there would not be enough tax credits, as I understand, available to kind of make up that gap. So ultimately, the construction needed to be decreased as well. And again, it would have been very difficult, therefore, to continue with the project. So that's kind of the funding background. I mean, it's still a project that CPC would really like to do. This is part of our mission. We've done many other projects like this in the city of Troy. For what it's worth, we actually are the lender on the 701 project. And we are looking at other projects that I believe even the IDA has been looking at, and we've done quite a number in Troy. It's a project we'd like to do, being able to, and that's also part of why looking at increasing the number of units was something that we've been working with the developer on to hopefully make this a more viable project. That's kind of the history. I'd certainly, hopefully that explains it.
Is it affordable housing?
This project is not an affordable housing project. It is a market rate project. However, our mission kind of is twofold. We do quite a number of affordable housing projects, but we are also tasked with looking at redevelopment projects in areas, inner city areas and buildings that have been abandoned and are in need of redevelopment. So this also, while it's a market rate project, does fulfill that redevelopment mission. So that's how we are looking at this project.
What's Sunny Mae's debt service requirement?
It is 1.10
Really?
to 1, yes.
Wow.
This one,
That's kind of low. He can't meet it.
this one dropped down to 1.08, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
And unfortunately, it was close, but it didn't make it. You know, in looking at the potential for having a the Sunny Mae's debt service coverage, I guess I should say, is more of an operational coverage in which they look at the gross, the effective gross rents. They subtract out the operating expenses as well as the debt service. So it's calculated slightly different. So it's really kind of an all-in ratio. So sometimes when they look at it that way, things like taxes can have an effect that they would maybe not necessarily have as big an effect in looking at it from a more traditional debt service coverage ratio, which we and most lenders look at, and that is a 1.25 coverage. But again, that is after that's a net operating income to debt service coverage strictly. So there's a little bit of a difference in how they calculate it, but
Glenn, maybe I could help sort of put that into some plain English in terms of, and Albert, I think you'll appreciate this because you asked the question about affordability of units. But in essence, given where rents are with this building, they only have a couple of options in order to make the financing work, and that's either on the expense side or on the income side. And so unless the pilot comes through with a longer or more substantial pilot, you end up having to raise rents. And so it ends up putting this towards the point where it becomes less affordable for more people. And so those are sort of the only two influences we could potentially have on a project. And so if the income has to go up, this becomes, you know, I think it closes the door to more people being able to afford to be in the units. Because right now they're basically at market rate, but that is still, for Troy's, is still substantially lower than the MSA, statistical MSA that we have here in the entire region. So I think this is actually a good thing. It kind of helps keep the project more affordable for more people.
Yes, thank you, Dylan. That actually is a very good point. Regardless of whether the project is an affordable or a market rate, CPC still does look at the AMI levels for all of these projects, and we do record them. This one at a market rate is what we call sort of naturally occurring affordability, meaning the rents that are projected for this project do not exceed 100% of the AMI. They're in the 90%-ish range. I think these are somewhere 93 to 95%. I apologize, I don't have that in front of me. But, you know, it is the intent to maintain them at that level. So they do still have some level of affordability from the market rate rents. One of the other things, as was discussed in the 701 project, you know, unfortunately, now that COVID is that does somewhat affect like CPC as well as Sunny Mae. We are looking commercial rents. We looked at this from you know, square footage, a rental rate per square footage. Originally, we still are looking at that, but however, we do need to discount that somewhat a bit more and higher. Earlier that we couldn't meet the debt service coverage. Some of these are some of the factors that affect that as well. And unfortunately, that's going to be the case going forward. We are looking at potentially sensitizing rents and vacancy rates at a higher level going forward.
And since you're on the record here, could you just, are you saying that you think moving forward, more deals done and that there's going to be a more demand for pilots moving forward in the future?
I would say it would be more challenging, yes, Dylan, because of the environment now and the economic stresses that are occurring right now with higher unemployment, whatnot. We expect that there'll be downward pressure on rents and the potential for longer absorption times.
What kind of experience do the developers have as developers?
Well, I believe Donald is on, La Rosa is on the call, but what I can say is his company, I believe, has over 30 years of development experience, and they are actually an existing CPC borrower. We have done a few, 3 or 4 projects with them in the past. Those, I will say, have not necessarily been in the Troy area. They've been in the Metro New York area. But our experience has been very positive with Bayside Builders and Don La Rosa. But I can let Donald speak to that. I believe he's on the call. Or was, maybe he.
He has to unmute himself.
I think I have to unmute him. I just unmuted him.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, we've been doing this more like 40 years now, Bernie and I, who's also on the call. We've been doing Brownstone, Brooklyn. We've been doing mid-rise, new construction. We've done adaptive reuse. We've done churches. We've done schools. We've done all sorts of development over the years. Bernie was an architect at the South Street Seaport back when that was done. We've been working as a team for some 40 years now. And we're kind of like, you know, smaller developers. We don't need our name in the paper. We just like projects that we like. And those are the types of projects that we do. We bought this property, got over 10 years now, I think. We personally have over $1 million into this project. We've got all the roughing, the HVAC, the structural work, the columns, the on and on. We're about to order the windows. We've done all of this out of pocket so far. All right, so our ratio in terms of how much money we have to put in to satisfy the lender, we've far surpassed. All right, we've also purchased some of the tax credits because there are not a lot of tax credits. The project is not of a size that makes it attractive to a big purchaser. We had to deal with JP Morgan to buy the credits, but the transactional fees alone were in the $400,000 range in order to affect that. And it made no sense, you know, for like $1.4 million, $1.5 million in tax credits. All right, so we've been, you know, chipping away at this little by little. All right, this is our type of building. All right, brick, wood joist. All right, we've done this building again and again and again. We're not afraid of anything here, and we're on the downhill slope already. All right, we're ready for finishes. We're ready for sheetrock, finished floors, finished mechanicals. All right, our electric is roughed out. All right, so I think the building is poised well to go forward now.
Just a clarifying question, because I just don't know the answer. I thought I understood this project as an extension of rooms, like more units within a building.
Well, we've done 2 things. All right, you know, given everything that's happened in the past 6 months, I think everybody is looking at retooling, redesigning, making their property more valuable. We've decided, in conjunction with Glenn, that more smaller units would be more productive to the bottom line in terms of rents. All right, so we've redesigned some sections of the building. All right, we still have the existing commercial space, and just so everyone is aware of what we did, we originally had below River Street 2 cellars, a cellar and a sub-cellar. One was maybe an 8-foot height, one was maybe a 6 or a 7-foot height. We took out the intermediary floor. We put floor to ceiling new steel columns, all right, down both sides of the center of the building. And we created one more monumental space with, I think it's a 14, 15-foot ceiling at this point, which walks out onto the back, onto Dock Street, which property we also own off the back of the building that we bought from the city. All right, so we've got now more apartments, all right, and we've got a nicer presentation of commercial space. And our intention, all right, unfortunately, you know, Troy is kind of a city of a lot of restaurants, and nobody knows where that's going. And as Tom said, all right, before, you have to have it done in order for to get people in there. But our plan all along had been to have, best described as an incubator culinary institute. I'm not sure if any of you are aware, all right, and whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, we own the old Pioneer Supermarket on Congress Street, all right, and we're Corey's landlord, and we've lent Corey money for his operation, all right. We've tried to help him as much as possible, and Troy Kitchen turned into an incubator space where people started there and went on and actually opened their own businesses, all right, which is a great thing, all right. And we're trying to do something like that, all right, where we've got this cooking restaurant, I guess is the best way, all right, to describe it. And we've had multiple conversations with BOCES about doing this and being involved with this and a few other people. I have not led those negotiations. That's about as much as I can tell you, but that is still our plan on the commercial space, all right, unless Peter Lugas comes along and says, we'll give you a lot of money for it, that's the best that we're going to do so far.
Okay, thank you for that. I was going to potentially ask a simpler question, which was, is anyone currently occupying the space?
No, the place is not
Okay.
usable at this point.
Right. So your original construction design was a set number of occupational spaces. You're now looking to augment that to make more instead of. Okay.
Right. The building has not been, we've been working on this building little by little over 10 years.
Cool. Thank you.
But you had not built out the smaller number of units at this point. It was.
We've not built out the small number of units at this point, but essentially what we're doing is taking larger units and redividing them. The mechanical runs are not complicated, and the framing is not complicated either. All right, Bernie, you want to add something to that? You have to unmute.
No. Am I on?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, essentially what we did was take another look at the distribution of apartments, looking to make some smaller units. For the most part, there are 2 bedrooms and then some larger duplex units at the top where we built the penthouse. So we took a look at how to improve the numbers for the bank in an attempt to get Glenn some more ammunition to improve the financial scenario. So the concept was that some of the 2 bedrooms in the front of the building could easily be split in half and basically become 2 studios. So instead of in the front of the building, we have 4 2-bedrooms. So those 4 2-bedrooms would become 8 studios. And that's where we go from 14 units to 18 units. As far as what, there was a question about whether they were built out. As Donald said earlier, all the apartments are, per the original design, are already framed. So the partitions are up, they're not sheetrocked. The beginnings of mechanicals have gone in, the plumbing's all in, most of the electric's in. So the changes over for those 4 apartments would not be that significant given that the mechanicals are within the units. So the only runs that would have to go there would essentially be 2 more drainage runs and 4 more runs of HVAC tubing to the roof for split systems. So it's a relatively easy change for what we're doing, but it helps solve the number problem that we were running into with Glenn.
And do you have a sense for the impact of rent change? That you're reducing the size of the apartments to make more apartments. Do you have a sense of what the larger apartment cost was and now how that transcribes to the smaller apartments?
Yeah, actually, Glenn had done that, so I defer to him. He had numbers for those apartments that were.
Yes, we have done some analysis of that. I'm sorry I don't have the exact numbers here. I'd be happy to furnish those to the committee after the call. I can work with Dylan and Steve on that. However, overall, the impact is positive because while the units would rent for a bit less, There's more of them, so it did have a positive impact and would support getting back up to a loan with revised pilots and the additional income, it would support a loan in that 3.2, 3.3 million range that we talked about earlier. I'm sorry, I just can't quote the exact amount of positive impact that it had right now, but I do have that information and can certainly furnish that, and happy to work with Dylan and Steve to get that information to you. But the additional units do positively impact and do increase on an aggregate level the monthly rental income.
Glenn, I have a question on that.
Sure.
It's math, right? You have more units, you can
That's correct.
get more revenue. My question is, what's the need downtown? Are there waiting lists for the other buildings, and changing them to studio apartments? Is that something that the market is looking for?
What we have found, or in other projects that we have funded, is that studios and one bedrooms are the most popular, and they do lease up the quickest, and that they generally do hold their rent projections. When you're getting into large units, two bedrooms are generally still a reasonable demand, and we don't see a lot of declination or downward pressure on those rents. But the larger the unit, the longer the absorption time, the longer the rental time, and those are more often where we do see concessions made on the rent. So that was the feeling in that. So are there waiting lists? I believe there are some. Another project that we're working on further north in River Street that is just finishing up and is entering the lease-up phase. They are seeing stronger interest in one-bedroom, studio one-bedrooms or smaller two-bedrooms that could be considered a one-bedroom with a den or office. So there is strong demand. I cannot quote you specifically if there are waiting lists, but we are in the projects that we are working on. Troy is still having solid lease up. So we have not really seen a slack off in those smaller, in the studios ones and smaller two bedrooms as yet. But again, I can't quote specifics right now, but if that's something that we need, I can do a little more research and provide some data on that.
You can also provide some data, Stephanie. We have a lot of data on the median age, for instance, is 28. The absorption rate it's the best absorption rate in the area, in the region at the moment. It has been for the last couple of years, and there are a number of development projects that are basically either on a waiting list or already pre-leased before they're even finished. So we continue to have really strong, especially in the downtown area, a really, really strong rental market. And I think you're going to see that continue because we have 70% rental to 30% ownership throughout the city as well. So that's the main reason for it.
And we have a market study for a project you'll be seeing next month that's based on the downtown market. And again, it shows the same thing. There's good demand, good absorption rates. So currently, we're in good shape.
So based on that, I know some of the calculations we were talking about earlier had to do with the expected larger vacancy rates and the project financing related to that. What are the vacancy rates that are being assumed in the mortgage calculate or in the lending calculations?
We're looking at for residential units, we're looking at around a 7% vacancy rate, which is up from a 5%. And on the commercial, we're looking closer to 10 to 12% vacancy rates. Typically, again, that's usually more on a 5. Pre-COVID, we typically looked at about a 5% vacancy rate. But that's
So
what we're looking at now.
For Steve and Justin and Dylan, maybe, are there protections? Are there situations where, if this economic situation does get better more quickly than is expected by this financing? I'm just a little concerned that we're obviously taking some taxpayer risk essentially, or money essentially, at a time when banks won't, and that's our role. But if conditions improve, do we continue to have to give the subsidy levels if they're not required at that point?
So it's an interesting question. We could probably have like an hour-long conversation about the philosophy of pilots, but the short answer that I see, at least speaking with a lot of people, they share the same opinion, is that right now market rates where they are, it's an income question. It's not really a question of expenses. Expenses are what they are. The cost to build construction, whatever it is, what it is. You can have operating expenses, then you've got income, and you're pulling one lever at the opposite effect on the other side. So if you're going to say you can only do so much about management fees, you can only do so much about the cost of water, electricity, etc., you end up with either taxes or you end up raising rents. And so the problem that we have right now as well is that if the majority of our city, at least the majority of our different census tracts, are either at or below the poverty line in a lot of instances. Right. So you can't charge that much in rent. So what we have to do is basically either subsidize that through either HUD for low-income housing or for fixed income housing, or we can try to do things like this, which is where we're going to take in future taxes. So right now we're collecting 0 or whatever the amount of taxes is on the property. We're not even collecting anything really, except a bare minimum for a vacant building. We're talking about collecting more than that, which is the pilot payment, in exchange for not collecting all that we could if this project were to go forward without the pilot. But the reality is, in this instance and in many of these instances, we can't do this without a pilot. The numbers don't add up because they'd have to charge so much money for rent, expenses being what they are, and construction being what it is, for this for rent to be higher than people can mostly afford in the city. So the answer is either we're going to have to accept higher rents, most likely, or we're going to have to continue giving pilots for a while until the point becomes where either there's a different subsidy out there or there's a different way to help. But those are the only two options I see.
But our pilot doesn't have any mechanism of enforcing rent rates. Is that correct? Or
the Justin Miller question, I think, more about the mechanics of the pilot and clawbacks and stuff like that.
Typically, we have recapture provisions that relate to the assistance we grant, but the projects as they come to us are self-regulated. They either come to us as an affordable project or a market rate, and we don't get into rent levels per se. We're just trying to make the project pencil out with our assistance.
Okay, any other questions? We're taking a lot of time on these initial resolutions, and there's a lot of good information out there. But are there any other questions, or?
Steve, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, all right, because I had asked some questions before and I couldn't, but I think I fixed regulars. So, okay, just want to make sure.
Okay. All right, any other questions? So is it a motion to accept the resolution?
To start a motion to approve an initial project resolution.
Is there a motion to approve the initial project resolution?
I'll make the motion.
And that's Christina.
Tina.
Tina?
Mhm.
Second.
Correct.
Second,
Thanks.
this is
Is
not
there a second?
I'll second. Albert.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Should ask, are there any opposition or any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay.
The only the only contemplation is just the rent change, but I can get that later. And this is just the initial. So.
Okay. Okay, so the motion carries. I'm going to just go right into my executive director's report. Can you guys hear me? I seem to be the one having problems here.
Financial position.
Yes.
As of 5/31, our total assets stand at $748,000, with 506,000 of those assets in cash. Liabilities stand at 72,000, leaving us with a fund balance of $676,000. There are no real changes to our statement of financial position. The next report is our statement of activity for the month of May. And for the month of May, we have a $785 deficit. The only source of revenue for the month of May was interest income. During the month, our expenses were $908.50, but there were no out of the ordinary expenses for the month.
Great. Thanks, Marianne.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any questions regarding the financials?
No.
Steve, do I need a motion to approve that? You're muted. So,
Make a
yes.
motion to approve the financials. This is Anasha.
Thanks, Anasha.
Seconded.
So Nasha approved, motion to approve. Is there a second?
Yep.
Tina, I'll make it.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, we had skipped an item before. We're going to jump back up to, now that Steve's back, the executive director's report.
And I'll take the executive director's report, old business and new business, all as one. It's the only update really is projects. We have 4 outstanding projects still that we're waiting to close outside of the 2 that were discussed today. City Station North, we are still waiting for them to come in for demolition permit. I spoke with them a month ago. I think that one is still moving forward. The paint factory, 669 River Street. That one is a little less likely. I believe that is, they are trying to sell that property right now, so we're not quite sure what's up with that. Just wanted to make you aware of it. The Fazio's is moving slowly and probably will start pick up now as we'll start picking up at this point. And St. Augustine building, Monterey Management up in Lansingburg, has been delayed a little bit. I know the developer can't get out of Canada. So I still continue to talk with him. He had some changes in his finance, but that is still out there. And that is it for my report, old business and new business.
Steve, is there any updates on the that waterfront property with the waste removal?
The King Fuels property?
Mhm.
Or, well, so the CRC and the IDA made grants to that project to do the cleanup. The cleanup is complete. We are now, that's owned by the Local Development Corporation. We are working with Justin and National Grid on a license to get them to start their remediation. Phase 1 should be starting in September. And then phase 2 and 3, they're like a year apiece. And we're discussing with a potential developer the lease or sale of that property. There's a bunch of items in around that, but that was great to get that project cleaned up finally, to get it moving forward, to get National Grid to be able to start their remediation.
And their timeline starts in September for the
Yeah,
water.
so they have 3 phases on land and a 4th phase that hasn't been designed yet that's in the river. So they're saying that the 3 one-year phases will take 4 to 5 years. We're still kind of working through that with them.
Okay. Thanks for the update.
And I think that's it, Justin. We could take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a motion to adjourn today's IDA meeting?
I'll make it, Sue Farrell.
I'll second it, Tina.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, the meeting is adjourned.
Okay, thank you.
So now you want to,
Bye, everybody.
wait, don't go anybody. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We have a CRC meeting.
CRC?
Yep. And that's gonna be, I hope not as long, but it's not gonna be fast. Is anybody in a hurry to go anywhere?
No.
Good. Okay. All yours, Justin.
Right. Good morning again. Do we have a quorum today?
We do. It's the same board, same quorum.
My apologies. I'm trying to learn, who's on whose board.
So
I'll get it.
we have the same minute issue as we're approving January 17th minutes, and that is Nolan, Albert, Sue, Jim, and Tina.
Yes. So is there a motion to approve the January 17th, 2020 minutes?
I'll make the motion, Tina.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I didn't catch this. I didn't catch the second. I'm having reception problems. I go in and out here. Who was the second?
So
Sue? Okay, thanks.
I
And
made
Tina
it.
seconded.
Oh, Tina
Great.
second. Okay. And then the other meeting, the March 20th, again, it was Rich, Sue, Tina, Anasha, and Stephanie.
All right.
Area motion to approve the March 2020 meeting.
I'll make the motion, Tina.
Sure. I'll second it.
Second,
Nasha.
Nasha. Any opposed? All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the NIP grant amendment.
This is the neighborhood improvement grant. We approved that at an earlier meeting. This is a city council request that we've done for a number of years. Initially, for the past 2 years, I believe we've given $10,000 for local community projects. This year, the city council offered to match that with $10,000, and that was how the application came in. That was how it was approved. Since the COVID issue, the city council, obviously the city is in some dire straits with finances. They'd like to request that they don't participate this year and that we do this another $10,000 grant this year without the participation. So it's just an amendment of the resolution. They also asked that we don't limit it to bricks and mortar projects, which was really not in the resolution. It was something we did in the grant agreement. But I think given where we are this year, I think this is a good amendment to go forward with the $10,000 grant, be a little laxer this year in how the funding is used. And so that's what's presented here. So it's an amendment of the NIP grant resolution.
I tried to pull it out of here, so sorry if I just failed at reading this. I saw the, like, what the $10,000, the pricing, how it goes out to the bands and the sound company and the toilets, and what was the augment? Like, what did they change out of here?
The change was that it's not gonna be a $20,000 project.
It sounds like he's talking about maybe the Paris Park project.
Oh, I am. I totally am.
This is item,
Okay.
Item two. Item two.
So with the neighborhood improvement program, it's up to $1,000 material cost financing for neighborhood projects where it's all volunteer projects, and so but volunteers don't necessarily have the money to get together the money for the flowers or the signage or whatever else that they are doing in the neighborhood. So it's very neighborhood driven. We typically have, well, I guess the first year the CRC was involved was a similar year where there was a financial constraint on the city's involvement. In the last couple of years, we've grown the program by matching. This year, we're going back to the original financing level without the city involvement at this point. I think hope is that federal aid will come in and augment our significant revenue shortages. But if that doesn't happen, we can't commit to city council continuing to match this funding. So it's important that that not be a constraint for now, so that we can start the project moving forward.
Anasha, would it be possible for you to provide materials on what NIP does?
Yeah, there's some pretty good reports, but essentially it is signage, flowers, welcome areas. It varies dramatically based on what neighborhoods want to propose that they want to do, but it's all community driven, and we can show some of the projects from past years.
Is it primarily beautification stuff?
Beautification and historical recognition. So there was some projects sort of honoring veterans along the Little Italy marketplace, some signage there. There were some historical interpretive signs in the Riverside neighborhood. One thing we're talking about this year is a dramatic expansion of the Allies program that Jim Gully has worked on in Lansingburg to help provide some materials for people to do alley cleanups in their neighborhoods. So it really does span dramatically, but none of them are grants. They're all just funding equipment that's necessary, equipment and supplies that are necessary for people to do their volunteer-based projects.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. That's helpful.
Richard, just to add into that, you know, these projects are very important to engaging the community into the welfare of their neighborhoods. And I think the most important part is when we get these groups of people together and they take ownership and pride in the peace of their community, it helps us to build a bond there that protects those communities over a long period of time. We've seen great projects come and go through the NIP program, and I believe that, you know, this year, unfortunately, you all know that we had to take a 10% cut in our budget along with every other department in the city, which very much limited us to any type of exposure in the NIP program. So this is kind of a year where we need to lean on the CRC and hope that we have your backing until we can get back to a regular budget in our system. Then we can provide more for the community. But we appreciate you considering this, and I think it's very imperative to keeping our neighborhoods engaged and keeping our people engaged in their neighborhoods.
Thanks, Jim. So again, this is really not a change in a CRC commitment. It's just a change in the request for the match.
Sorry, is there any questions? Is there a motion to approve the amendment to the grant?
I'll make the motion, Tina.
Is there a second?
Who was the second?
Did I hear you say it?
Sounded like Jim.
Yep, I think Jim made a second.
It was Jim. I apologize.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on to the third item on the agenda, the 3 grant requests for Power Parks, Tech Valley. I thought there was another one. I apologize. Maybe there's only 2.
No, there's 3. There's a COVID. You might be looking. There's the COVID response. So I'll walk us through this. The first is a request from the Friends of 112th Street Park, actually for the Powers Park concert series. That's just the nonprofit or the 501c3 that it would go through. We've made this grant for 2 years now, I believe. It's $5,000 for a concert series. It's been shortened this year because of COVID for August, if they are able to do it at all. But I think it would be important to be able to support this project. And when we get to COVID, 2 down from here, we have a component in there which is activation of Russell Sage Park in the downtown. So I think this is a good Lansingburg match or counterbalance to what we're doing downtown when I get to the COVID response grant. Jim Gully is kind of behind this with Councilwoman Kim Ash McPherson as well. And they're looking at setting up the project, the concert series, so that it is able to do social distancing as well. So I don't know if Jim, you want to add anything to that. I'll ask you. You're on mute. Yep, there you go.
I just want to first say thank you for the support that we've had over the years. And these small concert series are, again, a way of engaging and collaborating our communities and bringing people together. They're very important outside the box. It might not be brick and mortar or a building, but it's very important, strengthful hold on our communities when people get out and they get to know who their neighbor is and they get to enjoy some of the life in their own neighborhood. These concerts take a lot of work. but at the end of the day, we see the fruitfulness of them. We see the way people interact with others, and they're not just from Lansingburg. They're people that come up from North Central, from South Troy. So we're bringing Trojans together to these events, and I think that's most important because that's the part that we tend to miss. You know, high tech is a fantastic thing, but without high touch, it really only does half the job. So I'd appreciate all your interest on this project.
All right. So that's it on Powers Park. I guess, Justin, if you could ask for a motion on that.
Sorry, one question, just in terms of assuming it can happen. Is there specific language in here that this only gets transferred if we're in phase 4, or how does that work?
There's not specific language on phase 4, but there is specific language on, I think, as we pay based on getting invoices. So if they're unable to do it, we're not going to pay this out.
And Jim, how's your planning going in terms of is everyone sort of contingent? Is it all the vendors contingent on ability to do it?
The bands are the hardest part. I will tell you that, because bands book up very quickly, and we try to bring great local music to the park. Now, as far as the phases that the governor has put out, we've heard word that by the first part of July, phase 4 will be inactive. We don't know if that's going to happen, but I can tell you that if it doesn't happen and we are not able to put on the shows, we will not need any of the funding. But we need to be prepared because it's such a short time to start the process, and we believe that we're going to be in phase 4 at that time. We also are looking into the regulations for distancing at these events, as we need to plan that out, and we're in coordination with the county and others to help us to set up what we'll need to set up to make this a successful and safe event for everybody.
Great, thank you.
Questions or comments on the Powers Park grant? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion. This is Tina.
Is there a second?
I'll second, Sue.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Tech Valley, Steve.
All right. So I have online here, I see Cheryl Kennedy, who's the executive director of Tech Valley Center of Gravity, and I'm sure all of you remember Cheryl when she used to work here for the city. She's done a great job getting the finances in order for Tech Valley, and then she was hit with the COVID crisis. And actually, Cheryl, I'm just going to let you talk about it because I know you're more eloquent than me. So we have a request for $20,000 of support. Go ahead. Are you there? You're unmuted, right?
I am here. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
So we are, like many of the organizations in Troy, we're suffering from a very deep budgetary gap. Ending anytime soon. Our membership is down 30%. Normally we have over 200 members. We support over 50 businesses actually, and we expect that there will be more need for us to support more businesses as people find themselves unable to support commercial rent. For what we, for us to move forward, we have rent and utilities for a 15,000 square foot space. As you know, we're an anchor on Broadway and 3rd. And we have 2.25 personnel who support training, education, and resource development for all of our members. We coordinate multiple volunteers. And over the past 3 months, we were closed March, in April and May. We were able to operate as an essential business as we pivoted to be able to support PPE for the region. So we built face shields, and we had free masks that we've been giving out, cloth masks, as well as mask extenders, and now we are making sneeze guards for some of the local businesses so that they can continue to safely work with their patrons. So if everybody's familiar with what we do, we're a makerspace, we're a prototyping center, we are a manufacturing incubator, and we're a children's STEAM education center. So we have a lot of roles in the community. We have a lot of different partners as well. Our request for $20,000 would be specifically to support our community access fund, so that people who have been economically disenfranchised, our members who have been having very significant economic issues, so that we can support them and continue their memberships. With that would ultimately benefit us, as we, as I said, we're down 30% for our memberships. We don't expect that to change anytime soon. Some of the things that we did in order to continue to support the membership is we came up with a what you can, so that we wouldn't completely lose our members or lose touch with them. So normally our memberships are very low cost. It's $50 a month to be a coworker, $60 to be a maker, $100 to be a 24/7 maker, and $150 a month for a prototyping center. So we allowed all of our members to reduce down as low as $5 a month, depending on what they could pay and what their financial want. We have innovation spaces that are rented out. So we have also allowed our members to reduce monthly payments as opposed to canceling with us. We are also an at-will membership facility and also at will for monthly leases. So the benefit of coming to our facility rather than renting a commercial space is that, you know, if your business isn't doing well, you can stop and you don't have a lease, another 8 months of your lease that you have to get through, or a penalty payment. Does anybody have any questions?
This is, I mean, a great downtown location. Supports, I think, 50 small businesses. This has traditionally been a project supported by the county IDA, and we are a member there. I think this is a great opportunity to support the local businesses and a great partner in just about everything we do.
Thanks, Cheryl. Are there any questions for Cheryl or Steve on the Tech Valley Center grant request?
I got one. So the money won't be used. I saw in your budget, you have outstanding debt. Is that correct?
You, yes.
So the money won't be used for any debt, outstanding debt?
No. So
Okay.
we plan to use the money specifically for our community access fund. For
Okay. All right.
Other questions right now? All right, is there a motion to approve the grant for Tech Valley Center?
I can make the motion. Rich?
I'll second it, Tina.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Okay, thanks, Cheryl.
The COVID response. Steve?
Now, this is going to get interesting here for me. I went to my computer because I was having troubles with the audio. So give me 1 minute to.
We hear you now. Oh. All right, looks like we may just table that for a second until you froze. That's why. All right.
Wait, can you hear me now? I do.
You're breaking up.
Okay, I just left my computer audio back on this.
I see your name twice on the Zoom call. It looks like you're connecting with something else now.
Okay, now you can hear me?
Yes,
Does that
sir.
work? Okay, sorry. I was having troubles with my desktop and I went to my laptop and I went to the desktop. Too much details. Okay, COVID response. I apologize for the fact that the package came out to everyone last night. We've been working on this for quite some time and it's been tough to pull the budget numbers together. So the city and the LDC, CRC, we've been working together with the bid and the chamber on trying to activate spaces and provide opportunities for downtown businesses to help them as the COVID restrictions are lifted. And Dylan, are you on right now?
I'm here.
I'm going to have Dylan walk us through this. It's a fairly substantial request, but again, it's, I think, very important for the downtown businesses. Go ahead.
Okay, give me 2 seconds just to pull up some stuff so I'm looking at something too. Basically, this is born out of a joint effort between the downtown bid, the Chamber of Commerce, and then regional partners, including everybody from TAP to the Community Loan Fund, et cetera. And it's basically a series of public spaces that we're going to be activating through either shutting down streets, and the first couple will be it'll be Second Street between State and to the Monument, essentially. And then Broadway from Second Street to the River Street as well. And that would be from Thursday to Sunday every week to allow restaurants to set up their tables and chairs out in the public space so they can do it socially distanced, I guess socially responsible, I don't know. And so we've created this whole process. There's also going to be a couple of these dining areas, which is going to be maintained and operated with the LDC, we decided, which is why the LDC is the one doing the grant application. So the LDC will then be working with the bid to program Russell Sage, the park over there. We're working with Sage. We haven't confirmed the exact details on that yet. We'll be coming out with that sometime, hopefully early next week or so. But there'll be picnic zones that are going to be little circles, kind of spray painted with the art center, like in a really cool artistic thing, 6 feet apart, or at least 6 feet apart, so you're always going to be within your whatever the guidelines are. And then there should be like performances. We could do concerts. We could do movies for children. We could do all sorts of different programming that's free and open to anybody. So if you have takeout food from a restaurant, you can basically bring it down to these public dining areas. We'll call them like al fresco dining areas. I don't know what you want to call them. But so there's a couple of different products here that we're looking at. And then part of the budget is for the materials to actually do these street art, to do the street closures, to do the templates, that kind of stuff. TAP is putting together a guideline, a safety guideline that has all these different sort of seating arrangements, and they've looked at how to extrapolate the safety guidelines with things like pedestrian walkways and having to maintain corridor access for egress into people's buildings. There's a whole bunch of arithmetic that had to get put into that, so they worked on that. They're in there as well. And then there's also programming expenses. And then there are some in-kind contributions. We'll be working with the ambassadors program, similar to what they do in Schenectady. And that's going to be taking people from the community who are having trouble with employment for whatever reason, and basically bringing them out to help maintain the Monument Square takeout zone. So there's going to be somebody there whenever it's open, which is going to be lunch and dinner every day. And they'll be there to help sanitize the tables, to help answer questions, to help make sure that people are not moving the tables around in a way that's irresponsible or socially irresponsible, whatever you want to call it. And so there's a bunch of different things in there. And then a part of it is that we're also going to be trying to hold aside some additional money to support some of these efforts throughout the city in other places, hoping that this is a pilot project that works really well. People like it. I think we're all kind of waking up to the reality that this is not going to be going away anytime soon. And so we're going to have to get kind of creative with how we can allow the use of public space to help support some of the restaurants that basically don't have the size within their restaurants to do the 50% occupancy. I know the governor's guidelines is for 50%, but you know, that doesn't work so well for historic buildings that are only like 15, 20 feet across to begin with. So we're going to have to help people spill out to the streets a bit, I think.
Right, so you have the budget in there, your package, and breaks out where the funds get expended. One of the things that we did not include in here that I would like to consider is, this really deals with downtown. And while I mentioned we just funded Powers Park, there will be restaurants and businesses as well in other areas that are looking for either the ability to move out onto the street, and they may need sanitization equipment or tables or something like that. We just don't know what that is yet. We haven't had any requests. So I would like to maybe bump this resolution up by adding in a line for $10,000 for other non-downtown areas if needed. I know we're spending a lot of money today, but I think that just the times are unique, and it's good that we're here and that we did just have our RPI closing, and we have some money in our coffers right now.
Hey, Steve, I'd like to thank you for that comment, because I realize that downtown is a vibrant piece of our city. But I know that in Lansingburg, and I can't speak for the other outskirt areas, but in Lansingburg, there are many businesses up here that do not have the customer flow that you have in downtown, and therefore need some support to help them get through this very shallow time with their customer base. So I'm appreciative that you brought that up, because if you didn't, I was gonna. And I know Dylan has been working with businesses in Lansingburg. And Dylan, I want to say thank you to you for reaching out and thinking of those businesses also, while we try to trek through downtown and make it a very unique place to be. We have to watch out for our small businesses in the other areas, because they're important to those communities. So thank you both.
Thank you, Jim. We can work with city council members throughout the city to kind of look at how to do this in other places. We don't know what the exact cost is going to be, or even we're making it up as we go. We're building the airplane in the air, so to speak. So, but look, if this is like a test case, let's see how it goes. And then maybe if it works really well, we can start having conversations with everybody about how to expand this in other areas of the city as well.
I have a couple of questions. One is, who is basically on a day-to-day basis overseeing it? And then the other thing is, if it were not going as well as envisioned, for a variety of things that I could see that might go wrong, who is the one that pulls the plug on it?
That's a great question. The exit strategy is more time defined than anything else. And that's also going to be subject to anything that comes out of the governor's office, obviously. We can't, it's been very difficult to try to read the tea leaves in terms of what's going to happen with, pause. If we end up back, for instance, in another pause situation, that could obviously destroy all of this, and it could hurt. Which is why we're kind of jumping in, I think, cautiously with the initial outlay of cash to do it in just 2 places. So as far as the management goes, it depends upon what space we're talking about. The city's going to oversee, obviously, the closing of streets. We've already worked out the barricades and how to basically do that properly to ensure safety for pedestrians. There's also going to be policing. Obviously, there's going to be an increased presence around those areas as well, just while those areas are closed, to make sure that nobody drives through a barricade or anything like that. But in addition to that, you'll see the bid taking a larger role in terms of making sure that things are put away. There'll be a contract with the TLDC and the bid at some point about Sage Park specifically. And then the art center is going to be overseeing the actual things like the preparations, like the drawing of the murals, that kind of thing. So we've kind of made as much of this as possible to many different people. That probably makes it a bit more complicated, but at the same time, we've tried to pick areas that each one of these organizations has qualified expertise in, so that we can make sure that we're getting the right people on the right pieces. But the TLDC will sort of be the top of all.
A question. My concern is over the fact of the parking. It's going to be taking away a lot of the parking in the city of Troy, and seeing the fact that things may open up pretty soon and everyone can still go back into the restaurants and all these restrictions will be over. And the parking garage is not the safest. So my concern is the fact that when people do come to downtown Troy, which is what we're trying to do, we're trying to draw in more people, they're going to be so frustrated that they can't get down this street. They can't get down that street. They can't find a parking spot. Okay, let's go to Albany. That's my concern.
That seems a bit extreme, but I do understand. I do understand the issue with parking. Steve and I and our colleague James also sit on a parking advisory committee for the city, and we work through these issues routinely. I can tell you that looking at the numbers and where we are now, part of the reason that you're seeing parking so out of whack at the moment is because people are just leaving their cars in the same parking spot for about a week or 2 at a time. And that's the result of there being no parking restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually getting businesses reaching out to us, begging us to start the meters again, because what what ends up happening is that people that would normally
Did
have
you say that
permits for the
again? I
garages,
lost you.
we're getting a lot of businesses actually reaching out to us, asking us to restart meters because they're getting a lot of residents who have passes and permits in the lots now leaving their cars right in front of their buildings in the streets, in the spots that are meant for visitors to the city. So I think by closing down some of these spots, we're not actually going to really see much of an issue in terms of the total number of parking spots that are available. You're just going to see people getting pushed again back to places they were originally before when we had the meters in place. But we do understand that there's a give and a take in a situation here, like a push and pull, and want to make sure that the spots that are available in the garages are still open to people. And then we're also going to take a look at creating two-way. Well, there's a couple of things that haven't been out yet, so I won't get into that. But we're looking at all the different options, and we have a plan for it.
And again, if these, if you don't use these parking spaces, you're not going to have anywhere to go to. So I understand your concern. It is 2 blocks. There is sufficient parking right now. You can just park a little bit more on the outskirts of town. And so I understand your concern, but I think right now we need to help these businesses get open.
It's 47 parking spaces, by the way, that we're talking about. So there are 47 parking spaces that people use, but it's very easy to make those back up again.
2 questions on that, or ideas, sort of. One, it is somewhat out. Last night at our council meeting, we passed the initial resolution for a public hearing on the State Street going 2 ways, which increases access to the State Street garage when some of these roads are closed. I know Steve had requested expedited action on one of the projects. It may be worth requesting that on the State Street project as well, if it's materially possible to expedite that as well, just because it would be nice to get that access to the State Street garage up and going soon. And I guess Jim will have to have some conversations about what we do with the State Street garage as well. That being said, the other access there is once you get to that bottom of State Street, it's also pretty easy to get to the Monument Square site. So I was wondering whether there's any concepts around striping that for the summer, or just laying it out somehow. Obviously, I don't think there's going to be construction happening in the Monument Square site this summer, and there's significant informal parking there when there wasn't a project happening there. So I was wondering if there might be a way to formalize that and increase parking on the ground there in an interim basis.
So Anasha, if you're going to make State Street 2 ways, that will take away half of the parking on that street, correct? Because you're going to need the space for 2 vehicles to pass each other.
Tina, you're going to lose parking. You're going to lose parking on 1 block. You're going to lose about 5 spaces there on State Street.
But it provides access to the State Street garage, which last time I went through it was pretty much empty.
It also provides access to the businesses down there when the streets are closed during the farmers market.
And are you talking State Street from River all the way up to 6th Avenue, or
No,
just
a
1
third.
block?
Just a third.
It's an
Just on a
extension from 1st to 3rd.
All right.
Is that something that's going to be done just for the summer, or is that a permanent change?
No, it's a permanent change.
Yeah, that is a permanent change. There was, yeah. Okay.
At any rate, and the Monument Square question, is there a discussion there? Is there options there?
There has not been a discussion of Monument Square. We can certainly look into that.
There's insurance implications. We have to be careful because right now there's a deal on the table. Well, not a deal on the table. There's a finalized deal that basically involves a developer having control over the site along with us, and having public access on the site is a bit risky potentially, especially when it's in the condition that it's in right now. It's been used as a construction zone. I think we need to have conversations internally about how that looks, because I know that it's probably not going to be on anyone's prior. I don't think it's the most attractive option. We can definitely take a look at it though.
Great. Look at it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions regarding the COVID response?
Yeah, I have one more. On the restaurants putting the tables and all in the streets, is that at a certain starting time, like maybe 4 or 5, so that the business time of the city's more over with, or is it going to be all day so they can pull in the lunch and the dinner?
So as far as the the closures of 2nd Street and Broadway, that would be Thursday lunch to Sunday after brunch.
After brunch.
The dining zones, the takeout zones would be 7 days a week, I believe, maybe 6 days a week, but from they basically be lunch and dinner only. And everybody needs a special events permit to get this, so it's not like we're just going to allow anybody to just set up tables and chairs, despite what you might be saying.
And what is the charge for that?
The special events permit fee has been waived, but there's there's some paperwork that has to go into it. If you have an SLA license, for instance, there's a whole process we need to go through on that as well. So there's a lot of work, but the fee has been waived for the special events permit.
I have a question. Can I get some clarity on the labor end? I see the bid executive director, $6,343.75. Why that number, and how did you come up with it, and what is the purpose?
It's it's an old habit. I try to break things down between labor and materials. So the total cost would be $16,000, et cetera, for activation and the management of the Sage Park area specifically. She came to that number based, I think, on her hourly rate that she gets paid essentially, and that it's going to be for activation, and she had a certain number of hours based on a certain number of events. So we have a proposal coming from the bid to basically contract out this work on behalf, basically as a contractor of the LDC, because they have the capabilities, the wherewithal, and the infrastructure to do something like this. So they're going to basically be programming Sage Park for us. So both those fees together would be one invoice from the bid.
And it's important to note, Jim, that the bid has lost all of its fundraising opportunities over the summer, including the concert series, the other events that it does, and they are the active manager here for this. So this really would help, manage the project for us.
This can help take the place of Riverfest, all those things that we usually would be doing.
And we've been meeting as far as oversight of this whole thing. Dylan and I are sick of conference calls. We're on with Katie Hammond, Kate Manley, TAP, the Art Center, all the time. I think we have like up to 3 and 4 conference calls a week in response to this the COVID crisis.
All right, thank you for the clarity. I appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Any other questions regarding the COVID response? All right, is there a motion to approve the grant for the COVID response?
So I think if somebody's going to make a motion, you should address the fact, because the request was, I think, what, 46,000?
For 50.
What's that?
It's for 50 to just to make a round number with contingency. Yeah.
To include an additional 10,000 for non-downtown areas of the city. Probably like an amendment to the proposed resolution, or adopt it as is.
So I make an amendment that we added. I make a motion that we have an amendment to add the $10,000 to the program for other entities outside of downtown.
I'll second that, Stu.
Any opposed?
Just in discussion, wanted to check who's going to administer the distribution of those funds, and is it basically going to go to the purchase of tables and chairs? Is the idea?
It's not going to be. It's not going to be operating. Yeah, it would be for the same type of things that are outlined in this tables, chairs, whatever, clean
sanitation equipment,
stations for disinfectant stations, that type of thing. So it'll be managed by the LDC based on request, and we may end up coming back for more in the future if it's successful, or not.
How are these businesses doing in terms of masks? Should a bulk mask purchase be on the table as an option for part of this, or is it?
That is on the table. Included? It's being worked on by the chamber's actually leading that effort, but it's through the task force that we're all part of, the tri-party task force with the bid and the city. So Kate Manley has been leading up that effort, but she's gotten bulk purchasing options and will help make sure that everybody has access to that as well, in case any of your businesses need more.
Okay, great. Then
Because
that
I
sounds
think we
great.
get a vote on the
So,
amendment.
so who's going to administer the distribution of those tables? And I guess the other thing I just wanted to check on all this is who's going to own the tables at the end of this process.
Well, so the LDC will own the tables. It is likely we would be downtown working with the Arts Center to store them. They are supplying us with tables up front. Oh, I should add that initially when I did the email to request an emergency funding to spend for tables, we didn't spend that. I put them on my credit card and then the order got canceled because there was a shortage. Then I spoke with the Arts Center, had tables available. So we're using their tables. If they get damaged, we may use it to replace some of them. We purchase them for downtown. They would probably likely stay either with the bid or the Arts Center downtown. If we construct tables like picnic tables, there's an option to construct these half picnic tables, then we would construct those. And in the end, the LDC would donate them to the city for use in parks. Outside of the downtown area, I had not really thought about that yet, but they would be property of the LDC. So we'd have to find a home for them. Okay. So I think.
And the LDC would manage the distribution of them for the period?
Yes.
Great.
And Steve, who does all this setting up? Is this the restaurant owners or is it DPW or who is it? Because you have to block off the streets on Thursday and so on and so forth.
And that is handled, I believe, by the bid and the
Arts, the ambassadors will be setting up. The ambassadors will be setting up the Monument Square area. The bid would potentially be setting up the Russell Sage area.
Any other questions? So I think we need a vote on the amendment first to add the 10,000 for non-city areas or non-downtown areas.
So moved. Stephanie?
Oh, we had a motion and a second. I think we just need a vote.
Oh.
Justin?
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm probably going to be the only one to say no. I'm concerned about the parking and everything else.
Okay. Tina, are you voting no on the amendment? This was a vote on the amendment to add 10,000 for non-downtown areas.
Right. Well, it's all part of one package,
Okay,
correct?
so you're gonna vote, yep. Okay, so you're gonna vote no on the amendment. That was the only no vote. So I think that motion carries, the change. And then, sorry, Justin, since I've got it, I say a motion to accept the resolution, the grant to the LDC.
So moved.
I second it. Jim.
Yeah, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm the no.
Okay, so that carries as well. I'm just going to jump right into the executive director's report. The Franklin Alley project that we funded several months ago, pending the bids coming in, acceptable to the Local Development Corporation. We did get our bids were due, received received this Wednesday. They came in acceptable, but we are continuing to review that now. So hopefully we'll be able to do the Franklin Alley renovation project this summer, although I do have concerns about how that's going to work in conjunction with all the tables and COVID, but we are looking at that. So that's just an update. And that's it for the executive director's report, Justin. So I think that would go to financials now.
What was yours?
Mary Ellen?
Okay, the first report is the statement of financial position. As of 5/31/20, our total assets are $277,000, all of which is in cash, and our fund balance is also $277,000. There's no real changes to the statement of financial position. On the next report, the statement of activities, For the month of May, we have a deficit of $207. The only source of revenue was interest, and the expense for the month was accounting fees. Nothing out of the ordinary for May.
And then not on here is the June closing of the funding with the CRC, with RPI. So
Correct.
we do have an income of 500, and I can't remember the exact amount.
It's just under 500.
Just, okay. So.
Any questions on the financials? All right, is there a motion to approve the financials?
I'll make the motion, Sue.
I'll second it, Tina.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Steve, you want to summarize any new business or old business?
No, I think that should do it. I just want to thank everyone for a very long, we never go 2 hours, so thank you all. Next month, the IDA will have two new additional initial resolutions, as well as the two that we talked about today. So next month, the IDA will be busy as well. The CRC should be a little bit less, I hope.
Thank you. That wraps up everything. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Second, Tina.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks. Good seeing everyone.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Take care. Have fun this weekend.
You too.